Welcome into a special edition of HogvilleNET YouTube. We're not going live, but this is what I've been talking about for months, that I would have a preseason SEC power rankings. Here we are, really on the doorstep of the season. Exhibition games already underway. I'm not going to go through specific results of those that have already played out. We'll do some of that later, not in the show today. We're really going to focus on the season beyond what happens beyond the exhibition part of it. But the SEC coming off an unprecedented season, if you want to look at last year, not just because the SEC was the best conference in college basketball, probably for the first time in decades, arguably ever, but it was the best conference ever. That means all those years where the ACC or the Big East or the Big 12 or the Big 10 were really good, really deep, produced national champions. Never before had a league been as good as the SEC was last year. That is a hard act to follow. And though the SEC by many are projected to be the best league in college basketball, not necessarily as good as it was last year. Again, that's going to be hard to repeat. When you look at the non-conference results through the November and December part of it, the SEC dominated the other high major leagues. And then we saw just what a bloodbath the league play was. But 14 of the 16 teams, remember the league grew by 2, adding Oklahoma and Texas. But including those 2 teams, 14 of the league's 16 teams made the NCAA tournament. No league had ever done that. The SEC produced 7 of the Sweet 16 teams in the postseason. Half of the Elite 8, 4 teams there. Half of the Final Four, 2 teams there. And then the eventual national champion, Florida Gators. So you've got a hard act to follow if you're the SEC, but I do think, once again, the Big Ten's going to have probably the strongest case coming into the season as the best league. Teams are going to match up in non-conference play. We'll see how it shakes out. But the SEC at the top, probably the Big Ten I would put right up there, right there close, riding shotgun, and as the second best league. The Big 12, no slouch. The ACC, we're looking to see if that league's going to be a little bit better than it was last year. Only 3 teams invited to the big dance, I believe that's right. And then the Big East has work to do as well. But let's get into the SEC. That's what we're here to talk about. One of the things I noticed when I was looking at doing these power rankings 1 through 16, several things. One is some of the top teams that have been at the top of the league, lost veteran guards. And there was a lot of roster turnover for some of the top teams, including some of the best backcourt players. Florida lost its top 4 backcourt players off a national championship season. Returned a 4 deep on the front line that was really, really good. But a lot of questions even for Florida, who's the AP poll has ranked as the highest SEC team coming to the season at number 3, projected by the SEC media to be the league champs. But there's even question marks for Florida in terms of personnel. The other thing, when I do these rankings, they're not going to be a clean 1 through 16. I got a bunch of ties in here. And you're thinking, well, why would you do that? And, why wouldn't you separate each team from the other? Because that's not how it works. Just last year alone, 9 teams out of the 16, so more than half, finished in a tie in league play. You had 3 teams finish 10-8. 4 teams, including Arkansas, finished 8-10. 2 other teams, OU and Texas, finishing 6-12. The league was so good that 6-12 was good enough, despite how ugly that looks record-wise in your league, good enough for, sneaking in with an at-large bid. So you have a lot of ties in league play, and so that's how I'm looking at this. I'm not only going to give you the order 1 through 16 with multiple ties, but I'm going to go ahead and call out the records that I have projected for teams as we do this. So final league records, not overall records. Now, when you have ties, you also have you look at tie breakers to determine who actually finished ahead of someone else that you have the same record as. I didn't drill down that deep into it to separate it out that way. So again, you're going to hear when we talk about final league records, some multiple ties as I go through 1 through 16 teams in the SEC. Question marks again. Can Todd Golden and what he's doing at Florida, is this a team that's a serious threat to repeat? Remember, Florida has repeated as national champions in the past. Under Billy Donovan's watch, a Hall of Fame coach, now an NBA coach, is Florida able to get another back-to-back title run? A lot of folks think they will. Auburn just lost Bruce Pearl, head coach, so they're keeping the head coach in the family. His son takes over, but they've got aside from one key returnee, basically a new roster build. And they did well in recruiting, but you've got pretty much a whole new roster. And technically you've got a new head coach, even though Pearl's son has been in the league and on that bench for years, and part of that success they've had there. John Calipari, the dean of SEC coaches, now in year 2 at Arkansas, and you've seen a lot of criticism that he took while he was the last 5 years at Kentucky, mostly because of postseason results, mostly with a few outliers in his career there in 15 years, really strong regular seasons, including non-conference SEC finishes, but a lot of heat based on lack of postseason runs and getting to even the second weekend. He hadn't done it in a while. Then he comes to Arkansas, has a losing record in league play, one of the 4 teams that finished 8-10, but gets Arkansas to the Sweet 16, Calipari's best run in the postseason in years. And so Arkansas returns the most retention. What question marks there, though, based on does Calipari have the chops at this point in his career, now at his 4th school? He's had great, wild success at the previous 3 stops, UMass, then Memphis, then Kentucky. Does he have the chops to do great regular season and postseason? We're going to talk about that, put it all together, and make an even deeper run. So a lot going on there. Obviously, Texas A&M had success under Buzz Williams. He moves on to Maryland. Now there's a new coach there, and I've got my eye on that A&M program as a potential dark horse. But we're going to get through all of that. Mark Pope in year 2 at Kentucky again. This is a team that made it to the Sweet 16 last year. Looked really, really good. It got a bunch of quad 1 wins. Did really well in non-conference play, a little up and down, including a home loss to Arkansas, who was 1-6 in league play going into Lexington last year. And it was kind of the turning point for the Razorbacks, but it also exposed some injury issues with Pope. Different way of doing things. Plays a lot of players. Uses his, really recruits for a too deep rotation when you're talking 10 to 12 guys he might put on the court. And then again, when you look at Bama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mizzou, lost a lot, just a lot, especially in the backcourt. And then you're going to have some team that rises up and surprises. Is Texas A&M with a new coach and reloading basically with its rosters? Does it have a chance there? I like some of the moves they made in the offseason. All right, so we're 7.5 minutes in. Let's jump into it. We kind of set the table here for what's going on this upcoming season in the SEC. Again, I think it could be the best league in college basketball. Comes in as the slight favorite, maybe over the Big Ten. So let's look at it. This was a tough call for me, but I'm going to stick with Florida as the number 1 team in this initial power rankings. I was really close to having a 3-headed tie for first between Florida, Arkansas, and Kentucky, because I think all 3 of those teams have a lot to think. These are the best 3 teams in this league, and there might be some separation after those 3. There just might be. We'll see what plays out, but there are enough questions for each team to see them more similarly. And I don't think, when you look at the league last year, Auburn won it basically wire to wire. At the end of the year, Florida went on Auburn's court, beat them. Then Florida made the postseason run, winning the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament. Auburn gets the Final Four. But sort of at the top up there, you could tell that there were teams that were just built to get up that were going to go deep in the NCAA tournament. Tennessee, Alabama, a couple of those. You could project any of those teams as Final Four teams, and 2 of them made it, and 2 of them were 1 game short getting to the Elite 8. So this year it's a little bit different, although I think Florida, Arkansas, and Kentucky, looking at it, have rosters on paper that could get all the way. There are enough question marks where this was almost a 3-headed tie, but I'm going to go give Todd Golden and the Gators the benefit of the doubt. Arkansas plays on the road, by the way, at Florida in February, so both teams should be well established as to who they are by then, but that is a road game for Arkansas. But I'm going to get Florida replacing, they lost Walter Clayton Jr., arguably the best player last year coming out of the SEC. Will Richard, Elijah Martin, the transfer from Florida Atlantic. Aberdeen transfers in the offseason from Florida. He was their first guard off the bench. That 3-headed monster, those names I just mentioned, then Denzel Aberdeen off to Kentucky. So Kentucky's going to have him. Florida doesn't. So Florida restocked. Former Arkansas guard Boogie Fland, going to be a lot expected of him. Xavier Lee, a transfer out of the Ivy League. Urban Clavzar was the fifth guard on Florida's team last year. He did play some and had some meaningful role opportunities at different parts of the season, not so much at the end of the year, but he is back. Program continuity there. A freshman guard who I really liked and covered in person a lot in high school, Alex Lloyd, moves into that backcourt. A.J. Brown, a transfer. So you've got newcomers, but that front line, Condon, Tommy Howell, Alex Condon, Chinyalu at the center spot, Hang Lawton, who was injured most of last year, came back and helped that team playing off the bench. He was previously a starter the year before. But you got four bigs that arguably make this the best front line in the country. It's hard to say that it's not. And again, when you retain four guys just on your front line, and you get really good, talented, highly projected players coming out of the portal. I mean, Boogie Flan, SEC all second team projections. Condon and Howell both pegged as all SEC. And then Xavier Lee's a lot's expected there. So we've got Florida at the top spot in these power rankings with a projected finish record 14-4. One game behind and tied for second are Arkansas and Kentucky. That's how I have it. Arkansas has the best retention when you look at scoring percentage, returning scoring. Check some other boxes in terms of top in the league and some retention numbers. But I love what Calipari did out of the portal, keeping it front line where Arkansas had real needs, and you're bringing in talented veterans on the front line, one with proven SEC experience, Nick Pringle, the two five-star freshman guards, Darius Acuff Jr., who I was a bit surprised, not shocked, but maybe a bit surprised he wasn't mentioned in the three all-SEC preseason teams. There might have been a snub there. Malik Thomas, a sharpshooter. But you look at Carter Knox, Trevor Brazile, DJ Wagner. Knox and Wagner both projected second team. Trevor Brazile, fifth-year college player, fourth now at Arkansas. His last 9 games last year were lights out, averaged 11 points, 9 rebounds, and shot nearly 40% from three on modest volume. He's only gotten bigger, stronger, and has performed well in the offseason and practices. And then Billy Richmond III. You have a spool of riches at the wing spot. He can help you at the one as a third option there. But a difference maker, athletically a difference maker with his energy. I think Arkansas is being slept on with the SEC media projecting Arkansas 5th. Florida obviously was projected number 1. I failed to mention that by the SEC media. No surprise there, but Arkansas 5th, come on, man. Arkansas got a two-way tie with Kentucky, and both teams finishing at 13-5. Kentucky, Otega Owe, returner at wing. You can play through him, put him on the ball at times, and let him just kind of take over and create. He's probably better as an offense creator than his numbers leading up to the end of the season would have suggested. He took some games over, but a really good player at the wing spot, and a projected SEC Player of the Year and first-team All-League selection. And there's other retention. Brandon Garrison, he's been mostly a backup on the front line, but he's back in that system again. Trent Noah, Colin Chandler are back. Both of those players impacted what Kentucky managed to do last year. Jaden Quaintance out of the portal. Now, he had the knee surgery. Let's see, when is he at full strength? How good is he going to be? But he's a guy that's projected as a potential lottery pick at the front line, 6'9", and just can be both physical. He's athletic, and one of those guys that could end up averaging a double-double if he's fully healthy and plugged in. Jalen Lowe, the transfer from Pitt to run the show. We know that Kentucky had injury problems across the board with its lead guards or players that it tried to plug in and play lead guard last year. This time around, Lowe just, I think, had a tweak injury in an exhibition, or maybe it was their intra-squad scrimmage, and I expected to be out maybe 1 to 3 weeks, but injuries have been a problem there. Mohamed Diabate, the really impactful small forward, kind of a combo that can help you as a small ball forward. Transfer from Alabama, really effective player. He's in the mix. Cam Williams. I mentioned Denzel Aberdeen, the transfer. A couple of talented three talented freshmen that Pope has brought in: Jasper Johnson, Malachi Marino, and Braden Hawthorne. So this is a Kentucky team I've got tied in these initial power rankings with Arkansas, projecting both to finish 13-5. There is a pathway because the question marks I have about Florida's backcourt. I also have question marks for both Arkansas and Kentucky. Arkansas 3-point shootings looked okay in the the sort of the scrimmage stuff that we've been able to see so far. Not a lot, kind of limited, maybe better than we projected they might be, because it didn't seem like 3-point shooting was necessarily addressed. I think there are depth questions for Arkansas 1 through 8. There's starter value there, plug and play guys that could start just about anywhere. But injuries were a problem for Arkansas last year, especially on the front line. Not a lot of depth there again this year. It worked out last year, but that can't be a formula all the time. And those 2 5-star true freshman guards, Acuff and Thomas, until they prove it against real competition, especially when you get into SEC play, there are going to be questions about how it translates, as good as they are coming out of high school. I think with Kentucky, I don't know outside of Oweh how much value and starter value they really have in their retention, and there's question marks about Quaintance and his knee and his health, and then how a guy like Lowe's going to, the ACC was not a strong league last year, and so he was bumping up against teams in his most recent body of work that aren't on the level of what you see it get in the SEC. So it remains to be seen with him, can he stay healthy? Diabate, SEC veteran, and so Aberdeen, the same there. I think both of those guys are obviously going to be. There's a lot of depth here, a lot of options for Pope. And I think I'm bullish on Kentucky, same as I am Arkansas at the top of the league. Alabama, who's been really strong under Nate Oates, winning the SEC regular season in recent years, are always finishing at the top of the league, top 2, 3, 4, and getting one of those double buys in the SEC tournament. And then we've seen the runs last year in Elite 8, the previous year Final Four, but they've lost players. But I think Mark Sears is the big one. He was the consistent, the constant. He's out of there, and this is one of the reasons why I don't have Alabama a little higher. They do return LeBaron Fallon. This dude is a bucket. He is going to be, he's preseason first team All SEC. He looks the part. Aiden Holloway, one of those small, quick twitch guards that Nate Oates likes in his backcourt. Latrell Wrightsell, who was a big part of Alabama's Final Four run 2 years ago, was hurt last year. He's back. Aiden Sherrill's back. Houston Mallett, who might be a starter. So there's retention in Alabama, just not a lot of production returning, and guys that weren't really part of the scene as much. Some of those last year. Wrightsell, again, was a big part of what Bama did 2 years ago. If he's fully healthy, you got to figure Alabama's going to be strong this year. The newcomers transferred in Taylor Balboa on the front line. Jalil Bethea in that backcourt has a foot injury that might keep him out for a while. We'll see how long, but he transferred from Miami, was a top 10 rated 5-star guard that came into freshman season last year with a lot of promise. He transferred in the offseason. And so Bama's added some other pieces, but 12-6 as the 4th team in the pecking order here. I've got Bama finishing at 12-6, just a little bit lower than where it's been. I have a lot of questions about Bama defensively, and I think I'm not sure yet about the full health of some guys that they have. Again, Bethea, Wrightsell, a couple of question marks, and then our other guys that have not been as prominent in the rotation. Are they ready to step up? Some of those names I mentioned, Sherrill and Mallett. So we move on now. Tennessee, another team, a lot of respect under Rick Barnes, as well as Tennessee has done in the SEC, finishing at the top of the league 2 years ago, winning the league outright. 4 teams, by the way, tied for second place, behind one game behind Tennessee 2 years ago. So again, I can pick out any year. Ton of ties in league play the way it shakes out. Then the head-to-head tiebreakers determine seeding for the SEC tournament. But we're not going that deep with it, so we're going to talk about the ties and show the ties. But Tennessee, I've got slotted by itself, like I had Bama at number 4 by itself. I got Tennessee by itself at number 5. I mean, you look at that backcourt. Zakai Siegler was similar to Mark Sears at Bama. So much the reason why Tennessee's had success in multiple years, even though he suffered injuries. He's finally out of there. I think he applied for another hardship, and it wasn't granted, but he's gone. Chaz Lanier, you saw what he did. He tore the league up last year, now in the NBA after transferring. He's gone. Gainey is also out of there. He's been one of the plug-and-play backcourt guys that's really been good for Tennessee and the Vols and Rick Barnes. He's out of there. They do get Jacoby Gillespie back. Gillespie, he is a projected all-league guy coming into the season, and rightfully so. This is a really good player at the guard spot. Felix Okpara back on the front line at the center spot. Nate Ament, a lottery projected true freshman for the next draft. Arkansas obviously recruited him until the end. Tennessee ends up getting Nate Ament, and he's already projected second team All-SEC. I'm not so sure if he's second team All-SEC projection. Again, Darius Acuff should have been somewhere in there, but no dice. Jalen Carey, is it Jalen or Jaden? I can't read my own writing. The transfer, I think, from Vandy, now with Tennessee, and this guy, Amari Abram, also is a guy that's going to factor in. But Tennessee and Rick Barnes, they've had to go portal, go international, and you get a guy like Nate Ament out of the high school ranks. There's enough reason to believe here that Tennessee is going to be continue to be consistent at the top, near the top of the league. Fifth, I've got them at fifth here because of losing so many backcourt players and finishing 11-7. So 11-7 for Tennessee is the projection there. Now we've got a four-way tie. I've got four teams finishing 10-8. Now, if you go back to Lenardi's projections, for the longest time in the offseason, he had 14 SEC teams again projected to the big dance. The way too early stuff, right? He made these projections once a month. His most recent one that just came out, he dialed it down from 14 to 11. It's about where I have it after doing my research, so it's not a bad projection. So, and with the Big Ten also getting 11. So he's not really disrespecting the SEC. It's just a matter about how many teams. But I have these next four teams in a four-way tie for sixth in the league, all at 10-8. And all of these teams, if that's how it shakes out, are obviously going to make the big dance because of how good the SEC is. And then you expect these teams to pick up some level of quality wins in the non-conference. Those are things we keep an eye on, though. If not, it changes the dynamic. But the league is strong enough where if you finish 10-8 in it, you're probably going dancing in the postseason this coming year. But I've got Mississippi State. Josh Hubbard's back. Sean Jones back. Replaced a lot on the front line, some in the backcourt, but Quincy Ballard, a shot blocker, a rebounder, big time out of the portal, coming out of the American Athletic Conference. Jaden Epps, transfer guard that's been around for a while. A core, King Brace, a talented freshman coming in. But you've got program continuity there. You got Chris Jans, who always finds a way to make his team competitive, get his teams to finish in the top half, typically the pecking order in the SEC, and NCAA tournament, chops, typically since he's been there. So I'm going to get Mississippi State in a four-way tie at number 6, finishing 10-8. Auburn, who's probably projected higher by most. I think the question marks with coaching and with so many players that you have to replace. Now, Tahad Pettiford, all SEC, was really good player as a freshman last year on a team that was loaded with veterans, that he didn't have to be the star. Now it's his team, and you bring in talented guys. Keyshawn Hall, he's in the mix now. Abdul Bashir, Elijah Freeman from Division II, Kevin Overton, the transfer from Texas Tech, a good player in the backcourt. There's really good pieces here, and there's some three-point snipers in here, but I've just got too many question marks. Caden Magwood, a freshman guard who I think was probably underrated, a 4-star coming out of the high school ranks. I saw him play multiple times. I really like him, but we'll see as a true freshman. But again, I think too many questions for me to continue to carry Auburn in the top 3 or 4 of the league coming into this season. Tied for 6, again, 10-8. Mizzou, they've also lost a lot of veterans out of that backcourt in the wing spot, but they get Mark Mitchell back, an all-league performer, projected all-league again. Anthony Robinson, maybe an underrated guard in that backcourt, who's ready to have take on maybe a bigger role. Keonor Boateng, who didn't play much as a true freshman out of Little Rock last year, he is part of retention. I don't know how much he'll see the court, but players coming in: Javon Porter, Sebastian Mack. There are some Sean Phillips. There's a reason to think that Mizzou under Dennis Gates is going to have just enough to finish just above water because of Mark Mitchell and Anthony Robinson. I think they'll carry this team enough to be just above the break-even line in SEC play at 10-8. They'll always have an interesting non-conference schedule. Illinois, we'll see if they play Kansas again. I haven't looked at Mizzou's schedule because I'm really focused on the SEC part of it right now. I haven't looked at all the non-conference matchups, but I do think Mizzou, again, in that four-way tie as the third team I've mentioned now in this pecking order. Ole Miss, Chris Beard also replacing a lot. Matthew Morrell, gone. Sean Padula, gone. Jermaine Brakefield, gone. So guards and wings and that small forward spot, you're replacing a lot. But you're bringing in, you've got Malik Dia, the versatile big, kind of a 4-5, a 3-4-5, really, with all that he can do. Pass, shoot the three, put the ball on the deck, drive all the way to the hole. He's just versatile. And a productive player, gets on the glass. A.J. Storr, the transfer from Kansas, who brings a lot to the table. Like him, Corin Johnson, James Scott, and then Elias, and I can't pronounce the last name, international player. And it's a Chris Beard team. I think they're going to find a way to finish above water. A Sweet 16 run last year. We know Mizzou didn't fare as well in the NCAA tournament, but it made the tourney last year. Auburn all the way to the Final Four. Mississippi State, a tournament team. So all four of those teams now, again, tied for sixth, tied with 10-8 finishes in league play. So when you have a four-way tie at sixth place, that means the next team in the pecking order is the 10th team in the league. And I got Sean Miller in his first season at Texas. This is one to keep an eye on. This is one of mine that I'm looking at this going, Sean Miller's a proven coach, but I've got him at 9-9, breaking even in year one. You've got Tremont Mark, the former Hog, playing his 14th year of college basketball. Played several years at Houston, one at Arkansas, one at Texas last year. I think that's right. Yeah, and so he's back again. Jordan Pope, who was a bit of a disappointment, really one of the higher projected transfers a couple of years ago out of Oregon State, I believe. He's back. Simeon Wilcher, who was a big factor in St. John's, being a top 5 ranked team by the season's end last year. Dylan Swain, Cam Heide, who transferred from Purdue, who's a small forward that's got some versatility. I just think there's a lot here for Sean Miller to work with in Texas, and the projection at 9-9 may not be strong enough. This could be a team, if it comes together, that could end up being a top 25 ranked team when the dust settles, and then you're probably talking about a better conference record. But just for right now, until I see more, I'm going to update these and do more of these power rankings as we move along. But this is the initial one, and I got Texas right here at 10th in the league, and I think that at 9-9, that's going to be good enough to get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Vanderbilt, I wrestled with this, but just because of the coaching continuity, they are returning 3 players, McLaughlin, Tyler Nickel, and Tyler Tanner. You've got some retention there. Tyler Harris, an important transfer. I'm going to plug Vandy in with an 8-10 record in the 11 spot by itself, going 10-8. 8-10. That's where Arkansas finished last year, and Arkansas was a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament. This league may not be as good as it was last year, so 8-10 might be a little dicey, but I think that would be good enough for this Vandy team to get in, and this gets me 11 deep in my projection for sure. That I think the SEC is going to get 11, and I think as I have it now, Vandy would be that team at 8-10. Next up, I have Texas A&M, first year for Bucky McMillan, basically replacing everything. But he's got some guys. Pop Isaacs, who's had a lot of success as a lead guard. Texas Tech comes to mind. Marcus Hill transferred in. Frederico, who was frontline depth for Texas Tech and that team that was really good last year. Rylan Griffin, who started at Alabama, did some good things there on the team that went to the Final Four, was at Kansas last year. That didn't work out, but a guy that can be a sniper. And then the Mabako, one of the Mabako out of that family, probably going to be a starter. But I think Bucky McMillan is a really good coach coming in the SEC at the mid-major level. He's got a chance to, with what he's assembled, to be competitive, and I've got him finishing 7-11 as the team to finish 12th. No tie here. Texas A&M, and look, they're not far off. If they pick up a win or two in league play, and that resets a little bit, and they finish, let's say just a notch or two above, they may not even be on the bubble. That might be good enough to be an NCAA tournament team. I look at those two Texas teams, Texas and Texas A&M. Am I not being bullish enough about both? I think there are enough question marks. Anytime you basically retool the entire roster and you've got a new coach, it takes a while sometimes. But he might just have enough together, similar to what happened at Vandy last year under a new coach, where they surprise people. And the next thing you know, they got a quality enough resume to be an NCAA tournament team. So keep an eye on Bucky McMillan, Texas A&M. I've got OU finished 6-12 last year, and they had such a great non-conference success that coming into league play, I remember in my reporting I was saying the SEC's got at least one, as many as 3 teams that if they went 6-12, they'll be good enough because of what they did in non-conference play to get an at-large bid. OU was one of those teams. And I said at the time, Arkansas won't be one of those teams because Arkansas had only one quality win in its 13 non-conference game. That was that neutral site win over Michigan, but OU's one of them. But OU lost a lot. They get Wagyu back on the front line. He to me, he's kind of he's a good player, and it is retention. Forsyth, both of these guys played off the bench mostly last year. Forsyth is a perimeter sniper, a tough kid, but they got Nigel Pack, who's been around forever. Arkansas's played against him at 2 other stops, Kansas State and then last year Miami. Now they'll get to face Nigel Pack. He's had injury problems. They picked up some other players out of the portal, but I've got OU not finishing 6-12 this time around. I've got them in a tie for 13th place with Georgia. Both teams finishing 5-13. Georgia returns Blue Kane, Somtu Cyril. Keep an eye on Cyril. This is a guy that originally signed with Calipari to Kentucky, played his freshman season at Georgia when Cal came to Arkansas. And there's some other pieces there, but I think both of those teams were NCAA tournament teams last year. Georgia finished, I think, tied with Arkansas at 8-10. One of those 4 teams at 8-10. OU 6-12. They both got in. I think they're both on the outside looking in. As I see it now, this could change. My opinions can change. I got them tied for 13th, OU and Georgia, finishing 5-13. Coming up, and that means you're now at the 15th spot, LSU. Jalen Reed is back. He only played 8 or 9 games last year due to injury, but he averaged 11 points. He's back. Robert Miller III, another veteran, is back, but they lost their leading scorer. They got Markel Sutton, the transfer forward that Arkansas recruited out of the portal a little bit, helped Omaha, mid-major Omaha, coached by former Razorback associate head coach, in fact, Chris Crutchfield, helped Omaha to the NCAA tournament last year. There's just not enough here. LSU, I've got projected in it all by itself in the 15th spot. Didn't make the tournament last year. Not going to make it again based on how I see it now. 4-14 finish. Pulling up the rear once again, number 16 South Carolina spanked the Hogs down in Columbia. Had back-to-back wins. I think they beat Texas. Was it Texas and Arkansas? They hadn't won an SEC game until late at the end of the year, basically, and picked up a couple of wins. I got them improving by a game, 3-15. Michi Johnson, how about that name? South Carolina, Ohio State, South Carolina, Ohio State, South Carolina, something like that, back and forth. He's back at South Carolina, veteran guard. He can light it up. Miles Stute is back. Originally, I think, played at Vanderbilt. He's been at South Carolina a couple of years. Jordan Butler, the 7-footer, who's kind of a perimeter player and a 3-point shooter. Cam Scott's back. I mean, they got some pieces, but Carolina 3-15. So if you want to examine all those records that I laid out for all 16 teams, you can't have a winning record. You can't have a losing record because you're going to have a win and loss every time these teams match up. It's got to be even. So 144 and 144. The SEC is going to break even against itself. That's not what matters. Who are the teams that really stood out as we get through this? We're nearly 35 minutes in. I'm going to wrap it up. And to wrap it up again, I think there are more question marks because of all the hemorrhaging of really good players, especially in the backcourt. I think guard play still rules in college basketball more than anything else. And some of these teams that have lived off their veteran guards that were among the best in the country, All-Americans, that sort of thing, are gone. And there's really good players, and there's been really good additions in the portal. But anytime you're kind of starting from scratch at some of these really important position groups, backcourt, the questions are going to be there, and they should be there. And you might not be as successful. I mean, the SEC just burned a trail through non-conference play, just destroyed all comers, every league it faced. I don't know if that will quite be the case. And that's probably why, if you have some bumps and bruises in non-con, that despite how good you are in your league or how competitive you are, it may not be good enough for a 6-12, for example, to get you an at-large bid. It may not be that way, and it may be why you only get 11, maybe 12 teams instead of 14. That's going to be hard to replicate. It just is. So going back through it, Florida, then Arkansas and Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee, and then you got a log jam. I got a 4-way tie: Mississippi State, Auburn, Mizzou, and Ole Miss tied for 6th. 10th, and getting into the NCAA tournament with a break-even league record, Texas. First-year coach Sean Miller. Vandy under Byington, let's see, but I think 8-10 might just be enough for Vandy to get there. Keep an eye on A&M again in my 12 spot. And then I've got OU, Georgia, LSU, and then South Carolina in that order. OU and Georgia tied for 13th. But those 4, certainly the way I see it now, not in play for an at-large bid. Don't mean they won't prove me wrong and others wrong when it's nut cutting time. But for now, I just don't see that you're really talking about those teams with these projections, 5-13s and 4-14s and 3-15s, as being on any kind of bubble. Even I think they'd be just off the bubble there. And keep an eye on Texas A&M one more time. I'm interested to see. Everything seems new there, but it just might be enough to. Similar again to what Vandy was able to accomplish last year. All right, signing off. Thank you for joining me on this special edition of HogvilleNET YouTube. My SEC Power Rankings, the first ones, as we're basically a couple of weeks from the start of the regular season in the 2025-26 campaign. Until next time, we'll do another one of these. At some point, I may wait. I'm not going to do another one in the preseason. I may wait until the end of November and before we get into December matchups. I might do one in mid-November. I'm just not sure yet, but we will be back on. But until next time, thanks for being here. We'll see you then.